Good morning, or whatever it is, wherever you are. All right, so we've got some work to pick up on this, but I think I peeked over at the email notices, and it looks like we may actually have a data server error here. No, actually, for test things locally, first we need to sync local files, which we're gonna have a bunch of other stuff to pick up. Then we want to test these tasks specifically. I don't think I need any infrastructure for that. I mean, maybe I'll want to be checking some server responses later. Let's see. So it would have. Well, it could be. I didn't really look real close. It could be. It would either be in. Well, actually, I think I saw some MapLog. MapLog server was missing something. Oh, yeah, we got new file. And that had not appeared on live server. So I didn't need that one. Rails. Might want to check up on all of these, but the thing that is of a particular problem here and then we have an incremental file to test our updates in our other script on. And it's fine. Okay. Oh no, it was specifically server update. What did I call this one? Update. So is that just be an iteration problem, or is it going to be actual fetching the file problem? So now I need to remove a particular we do have the ability to update an arc. So actually it is the file reset that's a problem. Shift. Okay. Actually, since it's started the server, easier way is probably to look at the server output. So is ID 92. I guess I could have also looked up the file and done seed. And does it work like that? Okay. So is this a problem, or is that just kind of a one-off thing that should fix itself? I mean, I'll also have to specifically check that in the remote case. Although I guess it is possible I've made their local changes since then. Oh, no. I didn't need to delete this. I need to delete... what is it? Import arcs. Yeah, I called them lifelog files. Okay. Well, these are going to be map logs. Or I could just look at my local files and get the seed. So you are a new one. What is it? Life search. Oh no, you did word simulator. You're not actually using like. That's just straight up SQL. SQL name like. Or was name the example? His name was the example. Knowing our path again. And, yeah. Too much copying. Six 866-041. Are there even any map logs in here? Wow. Why didn't I believe you? We know there's one text in there. Yeah, I thought so. And there's the map log. Is dot a problem? What the heck? Oh, it's case sensitive. Okay, fine. Jeez. I thought I was putting extra characters in there just to make it easier on things. Alright, so if we actually update this from the server, so this worked fine from a local file. Maybe I had an error when processing it when I converted things over to server side. Did I expose contents? I didn't. Is that something I missed? Oh, no, that's something specific to the server mode. I'd swear I tested this, though. Maybe nothing had to rerun? And yet... it looks like it got tested. Okay. So that all seems to run in the current state of the code. Although you need to be updated. Do we have a console for this yet? Family trees, although I get myself confused if I am running both git commands and other things from the same console. You do up arrow and do something wrong. Okay, so what we've got right now is not really impeding anything. Then just kind of anything to have it update that. Okay. So that means this has to be published. It doesn't need to be published, but it does. Or it might as well. So you need to be updated. Meanwhile, we have a brand new data file to test out some of our incremental processing on. Or rather, to see how our new process is working. So this is map process. Which I may have left this in testing mode. Okay, so normal output and only processing our miniature file. You don't have this anymore. Okay, so we missed that line. So that must be it looking at all of those files. Six five eight 60601. Is this, so this part doesn't have any kind of progress bar. It was actually the output stage that did. All right, so Heroku run. That's taking quite a while to write out its files there. Okay, we might have some caching issues now because that missed the normal expiration window. But we do have some other local updates we can do just so everything is up to date. So what are we stuck on? Is it like stuck authenticating or something? Well, this is why testing is good. Oh, maybe it was authenticating. Alright, so now it's got to rescan everything. So this should be writing out locally. Unless I didn't put down what my output path here was. This is written out today. So that all still seems to be pretty good. Okay, so first detail level's done. All the individual placement logs. Yeah, so that must be like a first time authenticating each day or after so much time idle or something? It's like once we got to the point where we had the count for this, we should have been pretty much set on the input data side. And this is going to go up probably about 4 times each data level here. So this is a longish arc, so we probably had lots of stuff out in the wild. Well, I guess area-wise, it's the tutorials that tend to drive it really. Most people are in the box, which limits the amount of area you can cover. I kind of want to redo this as a percentage. Uh, 404 times, yeah, that's about right. So we would expect that to take about, well, 4 minutes, which is in fact the estimate. Ooh, we had some long-lived families there. All right, so this is going pretty well so far. I'm done with that for now. See, so this is still technically running, and we'll still be updating this file as it goes. Oh, actually, oh, yeah, there's no incremental pickup on a per detail level, basically. It processes the file or it doesn't. That could attempt to do a bunch of duplicate uploads, but normally if we can parse the file, we wouldn't expect a whole lot of trouble at a detail level basis. All right, so we've got this file, and we've got, well, these are technically separate files, because these do sort of operate a little bit independently. So now what we need to do is set it up so that the process that is running on the scheduled task, where it does not have a permanent file system, can grab these files and then write them back on S3 in order to keep track of which remote files it has processed or not processed. And I want to have that in a single file so I can just fetch it and have my state. Now, I've been doing that in a database so far, but I kind of want to move to where this file in particular is generated by the same process that is generating all this data, so that we don't have problems with having to have two pieces of code that always produce the same results for what these final timestamps are. Because that can be a synchronization issue. And then that just makes it all part of data processing. I've almost thought I might want to move some of the life data to static files as well, just to cut down how much we have to hit the, because you have to wake up the data server and then it can be kind of slow. For the sort of default view everything in a certain time period view, you could probably just chunk it by time. And then maybe we could tile it as well. Although with everybody in one spot right now, I don't know how big a difference that will make. I wouldn't have zoom levels there because I can't really do anything useful or terribly useful. To summarize that, I mean, I guess you combine dots at the same point, but then you lose a little bit of information. In like terms of eaves and lineage is alive. All right, and then you, we expect to be, if that was 4 minutes, yeah, a bunch. These might be slightly smaller files as we cut down the amount of stuff in each one. All right. So what did we have? We have a file system S3. So the file system interface needs to have a way to fetch the contents of a file. And I think the existing write will be sufficient for writing that back out. So we can start sort of proofing this on the local one. So we just have a base directory, we have paths within that. How have I been using this so far? I'm using you in maplog loading. Output are using these two things. So we're doing a file exist check. Okay. So assuming that those are, let's see, you are the data server, which we shouldn't be hitting as much right now, and then you're still processing. Actually, I want a PowerShell anyway. Because that implements printing to the console, amazingly enough. SDK S3. All right, so presumably this is going to be get object. We do have to do a bucket. And a key, which is unknown. And then we're just going to care about return values here. Nope. The specified key does not exist. So is that a return value or an exception? It's looking kind of like an exception. Yeah. How do we get in there? Oh, yeah. You don't behave nicely. S3 control? Actually, it's probably a top level object. Oop. No, it's probably like client. Unfortunately, I reset my sidebar here. So technically, the failed get is maybe there's an option for error handling. It's a single request, which you'd kind of like to do. I guess it's only like one file, so it's not a big deal. Download an object to disk. Oh, response target. So I could do a temp file. I don't think I necessarily need to. Bucket if match key. Yeah, I don't see any options for error handling or not found handling, so we have to go back. Oh, nope. Or do they just expect us to... Well, I guess I could probably do a list with a filter. List objects. Presumably v2. Bucket max keys. We can do a prefix, or we just have to catch the error. Which, I mean, really, after we get started, should never happen. It just seems kind of a crummy way to do error handling. AWS3 errors, no such key. So we can catch a very specific situation. So this is if file exist. If file exist. Let's see, JSON parse, file read. This is still list objects. Nope. I guess it's not doing memory of the anchor. Get object. All right, so body is an IO. So we can theoretically stream it. Now those are parameters, returns. All right, so examples. To H does not return the contents. It's like all the metadata. Body.read. Yielding data to a block disables retries of networking errors. I should probably reread put object. I think I was attempting to do some streaming on the upload. Streaming a file from disk. No such notice. Okay. These should be small enough we can just read them. So it's response body read. It's going to do an exception if it doesn't exist. So the interface is that we want to do an immediate call, and then we are going to yield into the if found block. If we don't have an exception. So these things can keep their if file exists processing. I mean, or you just return a value. Well, I'd have to be able to return a useful value. Well, okay, so the file system API that we've got so far sets it up that we write with a block that yields a I/O. So body is an I/O, so that actually will still work even with the synchronous version. But if we do this on the get, it disables retries of networking errors, so we kind of don't want to. And it's chunked. Which is not exactly what we want. Okay, so. So we need you. Since this is a read, it doesn't really matter if the path exists. It's just going to fail. Well, put final placement. Now, it just so happens that all of these are JSON files, but that's not something I can. Well, for instance, when I'd like to reuse my existing write method, which does not deal with JSON. Actually, this is an I/O. This is using file.read. But how would I would have to do a file.open. But then how would I do it with the S3? That's just an I/O object. Okay, so with a file case, we kind of do want to do that, and hopefully we can still just read the entire thing. Okay, so what are you complaining about? Assigned but unused. Okay, that was just only updates on write. All right, so are you actually finished yet? Yay. So the problem here is my ARC data is going to be heavily cached. So testing the stuff on the server is going to be not super easy. We've definitely got the local ones. LS. That might just tell me it exists. Oh, okay, well, we've got subdirectories, so we've probably got contents. Okay. So oh, well. Or I could try to actually get a path. To make sure it's retrievable, but that seems pretty good. But I suspect that, yeah. CDN and/or browser still has the old ARC in it. All right, output, final placements. All right. So this is going to become a subpath. This only needed the make dir because of these files, because that's been abstracted. So now we've got write tiles, file system.write path do. And what's a keyword? And would that be f.read? And really what we want to know is, did that read anything? Okay, so this isn't exactly the same in here. Possible use of a variable in void context. What? That's 39. Oh, you were my old return value. And then, all right. Submit process. Test. Don't need you right now. Just a small file. Okay, that was the get one. No, that was a get one. Or this is just the history we got? Okay. Find a file system. Does the time at which... No, it should have this on construction. File Citem, which I copied. So it looks like it does hit that one first. And find method read for, file system group. That's right, so let's do both of these. This is probably O. How do you read from multiple files? First one to succeed. Of course, I'll only be doing S3 in production. So does read just take like file systems first? Ideally, it would be sort of on success. Otherwise, it would get the callback multiple times. Which I mean sort of works. Arc path for file system local. I copied a little bit too much there. That's just going to be file path. Okay, we printed nothing. Which means we did not successfully find our file. Output key place test, unless I cleared this because of some testing things. Okay. Okay, there's one thing in there. Oh wait, did I leave that as file.read instead of file.open? Yep. So now it's not getting called at all. Or was it file read before? it was redo. Wait, we did not. We're not even getting called back here. Oh, it's going to print very well. Proc. There's something there. Undefined method read for string, no surprise, but that proves that it's not calling that block. Why? Why does the file exist, which says we're running this code? But the method that we used, well, I was using file read before. Well, actually, I was looking at this. I guess there isn't a file read block, which says, does file open not work for the read case? Okay, there's file output. But it just exits. Did we end up writing something bad into processed? Because that one does get hit first. I guess I should really be looking at that. Oh, that has data. So is it that we are not needing to do arcs? Well, this is something that we often have to fix in here or tweak in here to be able to continue. Oh, no, because I put an exit there. But we weren't reading art. Oh, maybe that was something else that was printing out empty? Oh, is there a situation when we checkpoint? Who would not use this? Well, we've got arcs, so arcs should lazy load if it's there. Okay. All right, so this is currently preventing processing, but we think everything is fine here. Although I guess we had a bunch of exits in there. Oh, I need to change my write method. Right, and arc's path changed, or arc path changed. So these need to be updated. So this is set up for the block format. File item. JSON pretty generate, arc's value. Unexpected, right, because this used to be inside of the function call. All right, so that one is working, and some of this can be pretty much copied over to MapLog. So there's probably room for some well, there might be some room for further abstraction here. Because like process path is the same. The processed is mostly the same. We don't need to do make dir. It's not quite the same. Because we don't do the arc stuff. I think that was about it. So output, final placement, change the path, remove that. We've got our reads and our write. Oh, we're not calling this right now. Now, I guess I didn't actually check my output, but it has been recently updated. All right, so map process, we probably want to turn this off just to keep things running quick. We actually want to turn local off because we want to test reading a file from there. Although, how does that work when they're both on? Right now, well, it simply won't call back when it doesn't exist. So I think that'll be okay. All right. So similar interface. And this, so I guess, and I still have this up. And really, we just do nothing. If we do get it, actually there is no file path here. It's just bucket path. And I guess for now, just for feedback. Okay, not found. Okay, it reran, which means it doesn't seem to have successfully either read or written those files. They exist and they have bytes. So the first file we get is processed. Oh, because I disabled the check. So we can test the reading and the writing. Okay, so it looks like I'm currently printing file names whether or not I am working on them. Right tiles. Now it says we got to the right stage. That doesn't seem... Map process is just... Yeah, everything it considers. Now, if we were to... Well, I guess could be a good test of how this responds to having both of these things. Which could get a little bit weird. Oh, did I leave my exit in? So that one wasn't found, but the local file did have it. So if we have a problem between the local and the remote, it... I would almost say you have to run it separately to like really get it nailed down. I'm also going to want to upload my local file versions before we start doing automatic updates on this, so it kind of picks up on what's been processed already. And it will eventually be writing those files out to both places, which is not so good for like if you're updating from multiple spots. In fact, if I run a local update, yeah, I could see different systems stepping on each other a bit. You'd almost have to run it separately for each of them. Well, I mean, this is still progress. All right, so normal configuration would be there and not there. Output, final placements. Return is on. Output map log. Return is on. All right, so now our problem is that we can potentially have different statuses at each place. So for our standard, well, one way to do this is to just control which of these I'm doing and mostly run just local here and just S3 on the automated task. But it is a bit of work to parse things. It's nice to write them both out at once. But if we're out of sync, that's kind of no good. All right, so you are a straight up array, although I believe we convert it to a hash while processing internally. This is a hash. So one way to do this would be to take the minimum set of keys and there's also the time issue on some of the other points, or on the files. Although I am out of water. I will be back in a few minutes. And supposedly they have turned off some of the debug tracking. Now it's still a recently loaded game, so it might not be too visible in the jobs panel, but oh, vacant position. That's new. But it does seem to be scrolling much better now.
A little bit here.
"14 strength. That's pretty sweet. But is that what they started with? Because that doesn't get boosted up, right? As far as I know. Okay, so we need to do some more debugging. So the issue is when it comes out here, it wants to go in either direction. So when it comes out, I think we need to make sure. But why would it ever try and go backwards? There's an exit over here.
All right, let's see. We're done with Bugfix. I don't think my current structure would work good. Because we're relying on abstracting over the fact that we sometimes want to write out multiple files. Oops. I would have to have some way to introspect on a file system by file system basis. And like Reed would tell me which file system it was. I could keep 2 copies. Do this if either of them was missing it. And then we would have to selectively rewrite. Also, we're starting off with an empty object. So saying if it doesn't, we want to take the minimum set of processed things. We would have to say, well, if there's any entries, then we need to do that. If there's 0 entries, then we initialize it to that. So I might have to set things up where I assume we are synchronized. Well, the no code option is assume we're synchronized during this sort of initial testing period. And then afterwards, we extract this process, which, I mean, this is getting to be a reasonable amount of code for just a little script or something. Oh, I did leave this not in production configuration. So if I sync my files up to S3, then right now it's going to use the later one as long as the file exists. And if it doesn't exist, then it will just continue to do what the local says. And then what we eventually do is we only run local here. This runs on the automated task. And I guess this is going to be this is a smaller script, a somewhat smaller script now. You could actually just have a copy of it that was configured to run remote. So you didn't have to tweak the file every time. Oh. I'm also going to have to configure where I put this thing. Because right now, for processing purposes, Just stuffed it into the cache. It's going to be static objects JSON in a file system. Which means this might need to be able to handle that somehow. Any other files? I don't think, yeah, they mostly just pass in the object data. Yeah, object parse. So probably you just shouldn't deal with the actual reading yourself. And then this thing just takes either a big string or a file handle, which for JSON parsing, I'm not really sure you can use a streaming thing. Then I could just call read in my file systems. If I had some feedback where this was able to successfully read, I could set it up so that we always read the first one. That would give you some control over it. Or the first one that successfully found the file. Which means we would have to do something like that and uh, that way I could set up my local one so it would read the object data locally if it could. So object data. Okay, well, so first of all, I need to this is going to have to get another ignored directory pretty much. For that to be a valid thing. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. My file system local is configured to be output. So I think I'm already ignoring output. Alright, so you need to not take a path. So maybe you have nothing. So this is still a pretty stateful operation that it updates all the stuff, but what we get is a that's JSON parsed. Or do I want to pass it the file handle? I wouldn't really pass the method directly anyway. But do we use object data elsewhere? Well, these two are being replaced. I could probably even delete the files at this point. All right, so we need to... Oh no, actually you are... here. Oh, but that's in a block. So I guess you can be there. So that won't fail if it doesn't exist. I might like to know that. We've just got outer reader, so... Object over, object size, floor removal. I guess object size is one of our main things. Or maybe object data. That would be if it was an empty file, not if it was... Alright, so if this is not found, leave this out of the equation for now. And that's it, printing all of the names. Okay, and it should actually be able to successfully read that from here alternately as well. Of course, no, I keep wanting to put things back here. I might be getting to the point Where if I... Do I want to abstract this process? Or is it small enough to go by itself? Right, I used to skip if we didn't do this. This might be where... I'll end up printing it twice because I've got two of these. You will print if you don't skip. No, I've already checked log file.path at that point. And log file doesn't really have anything besides path of interest. Path equals, cache equals, yeah. So that will get rid of some of that. What was that? Dir equals cache. Oh, and this only does... So this is going to be a little bit different anyway. Because that one is going to be default to using the live online server. Yeah, so maybe I can't abstract this too much. Alright, so we have a status return. You can get past your data. Depend on the file system. Alright. I mean, I guess for reading the files, I don't actually have to use the S3 API. I could have used a regular old fetch from public web server, but I guess I've already got S3 in there, so it's there. So I could perhaps start building the task for this without being expecting to necessarily be running it right away. All right, I think I'm done with you. We have consoles for this. Family trees, running the server itself, those two. All right, so we've got your status. Once again, well, the terminals confuse me too, but it might be nice to keep that separate from our source control. All right, so right now we've got import arcs. Now this is gonna, Avengers is actually going to be taking over that. But I don't want to replace it, particularly right now. I guess I have done plural, haven't I? Monuments, lives. Now, this isn't an import as much as a place I can run this. All right, so we need maplog cache, we need maplog server. We should, well, ultimately you're only going to be file system S3, but this could still be useful for testing, but I probably don't need to do both. Oh, oops. All right, we got maplog cache. Oh, actually, we do load both of them because we've got different tasks for that. Maybe cache. Local files should go to local files and remote files should go to S3. I mean, you probably need to test the other combinations at some point. So I don't think I actually directly need that anymore. Okay, so output, output. Not necessarily going to be doing both of those at the same time here. Okay, maplog cache servers. That is the equivalent of this. So that's each log. So these has a lot more like setup. Although I guess some of this setup can be at the module level. You should probably be running on test for now. For local tests, you don't have an actual output directory. Probably could. File system might be... Yeah, so this is where I'm lazy with the scripts. If we say load cache should go to local and fetch should go to S3, then I'm going to need to be able to do this on a method by method basis and pass that down all the way to the stuff doing the work. Oops. Now, this is where, I treat this as a module so far, but maybe some kind of instance would be useful here. So we're thinking that you're just going to be local. Although, actually, what's my cache? Well, there's a reference. But that's to the cache, not to the output. Maybe that needs to take multiple arguments. Which would likewise, the output bucket should probably be in task argument. And then you start wondering about things like this. All right, and then, yeah, this is where instance stuff is starting to look. So file system might be a thing. Actually, that's... Oh, you guys don't need output dir anymore, I don't think. Yep. You still need output path. That was just kind of a stand-in when we worked things over. So you depend on the file system. So that is actually the only reference to output dir and output bucket. So maybe that config should be in the task. And tasks, I don't think... have like a great place to build up stuff either. Or to build up state. Well, you could build it up locally, but you ultimately have to pass it somewhere. So if you actually just took a file system that would take care of objects, that would take care of where you write stuff, that wouldn't take care of the cache. Although you... Although I could almost just pass an instance of the map log. in here. Are these actually different? Well, I was thinking this behavior might be different, but it's really files where it's coming from and where it's going to. Import lives. You don't really do anything different. And then arcs, which is moving out. Yeah, so I took these two tasks that were a little bit different and extracted them to a module. Maybe I extracted this stuff and then never kind of looped back. Yep, no tasks. Well, I was trying to keep the these relatively small. This gives us a single import. Whereas the update pretty much just has to call it. But that is like exactly the same method. Okay, so we just have a new file so far. And this does contain the knowledge of which specific things it has to load. Yeah, I think that was mostly about dependency reduction in the rake task. You could use a sub method though. Do I have a overall name for this? It's like a file collection? Apparently load is a keyword. Of course, I've already imported for today. Okay, so that's lives. Data server, you did get status. This is the too many windows problem. You've also done get status. This should determine it has nothing to do. Oh, and it's... Oh, yeah. All those missing lives. Okay, then we have monuments. Oh, you've got different monument count methods. Maybe that should be a server's method? Cache equals cache path, servers, initialize. Okay, we mainly do... an each on you. Monument server. Base URL, base URL. Yeah, that could be there. At least from this perspective. Yeah, it's only defined here. Wait, doesn't... Is fetch doing this directly? No, it's writing to the count. Yeah, it's doing it directly. Maybe a better way to use that. All right, so if we move you up to be an instance method, then you don't need this. Monument server, no, extract monument path list. This is actually used farther down. That's just a convenience method, or a helper method. And you have a base URL. All right, so first step, we have to test this. So we have to construct 2 instances to do it. In its current form. Rails. Monuments. Uninitialized monument cache servers. Yeah. No, that was a transpose. That's not fetch here. Okay. So that allows us to count known. Yeah, it's just duplicated. Load collection. Unexpected keyword end. Oops. No? There we go. And I could do the same thing to arcs, but I'm hoping to just retire that code. Okay, I should actually commit my other thing, because that's what it depends on. The monument count, monument count, monument count. Put final placement. Oh, we don't need output DIRs anymore. So we kind of changed two things. All right, now we have to run something here to make sure it tags that as the new version. We don't want to look at the new file yet. Extract, import, load loops. All right, so now if we're going to map logs, we can apply that same pattern here. Oh, actually, I was debating. It might have to be that other parameters. Which I guess does mean that that other code is no longer independent of the things we are doing on this. System. So we get an output dir. So we still have the interface method that uses the cache. Right, yeah. Maplog cache, maplog server. Unexpected keyword end. Okay, so that is not... Okay, server's new cache. Okay, assigned but unused variable. Output bucket. Oh, I was debating if I should pass the file system into here. Which has the same problem of before, that all these dependencies have to get moved out to the task. But we can like do a configuration here and then probably pass it into here. So load cache and use local file system. Whatever we do with that, so actually, for keeping things straight here, so we need collection, we need objects can follow from file system. This is probably going to default to processing both. And this is where some object data might be nice. They have a context for things. Okay, placement path, file system objects, file system objects. Might actually just want to do one of these for testing. And then our loop, collection each do, logs. We were able to get a server before. Load logs, logs. This could turn into a big lot of context. So maybe I want to do an instance of something. All right. Load server is just the logs each loop. So you were doing is log file processed in the database. And I wanted to set this up so it ran off the files because it was file stuff and I could potentially do that processing from wherever. But right, actually each process is doing its own little thing. So we would not have this. And that's the file update, which handles in its internal process. So load log might be these things, so I also need a method for it. Because that is already somewhat abstracted. And we might still want some of this stuff. Although we should have our processed cache set up here. Okay, however, you are going to need final placements and map log at least. You used the objects, file system, you took those. Arguably, it could have some little indirection method for both of these. Load server. Okay, so now that works. I mean, because I've abstracted some of this already, I almost don't need the separate methods for these. I guess there's some of our setup here. That was from the previous save. So we now have a mismatched file signature here, which the warnings is not giving us. So this is going to say importing because it doesn't have its own cache check anymore. Well, might want to leave it for now. Okay, get. I did some get here. Rails. Oh, I need a task to run this, huh? Not really gonna have that. And I don't know what to do for you just yet. I'm gonna have to cross that when we get there. Oh, I guess arguably this might end up taking a bucket argument to keep that same level of abstraction. Or maybe some paths. I don't know. Anyway, you've got load cache, output. Oh, I was going to do that. Initialize constant, file system local. Oh, I was using a bunch of code that had done a import on family trees. And even though I've kind of got a little bit of a local module here, I'm always nervous about doing those imports. Oh, you are just commented out right now. Oops. Download map log. Oh, right. I set it up as an argument. So I guess that means it'll count as used and you shouldn't complain at me. But that I wanted to turn off for now. Okay, so yeah, it says it's doing all this stuff. It didn't actually do anything because there's a file there that says it shouldn't do anything. Should almost have an argument for this. Okay. So that probably means we're in pretty good shape. It's not going to be an actual importing. Oh, got 2 cache paths. So we would want to run some kind of test on the remote case. So servers has built-in paths. Yeah, maplog cache, maplog server, file system S3 output bucket. Signed but unused variable. For consistency, so just to make, this right now is still going to be using that. I probably should, well, I guess I can test it later. I need to update my local env variables for testing so that we have a similar environment there. Although, I guess I'd have to do a foreman task to run it with the environment. Output map log. No, I mean, sure, eventually, but we still have that turned off. This is a test of Actually, this is probably a good thing to have for the test here, because I think I've probably run this with status files. I was doing git stuff. KP test. Yeah, is args processed and just that one small file? Okay, I didn't think it needed to change anything. But if it did, and that almost felt fast. Oh, because it wasn't doing file system at the same time. Hmm. All right, so that's fine. Import map logs. We had turned this off. We had, which I guess, so that should be able to read its status file as well. Oh, okay, I had gone in. I put map log and turned you off. Okay, it does nothing. All right. So this is our main testing thing right now. All right, did I make any changes to you? No. We have 2 brand new files, which we're just going to sit off to the side. I'm probably going to test things locally here for another time or two. And meanwhile, I can get the server configured and see if we can actually process things there, and then our local file will just be for updating my local cache if I need to. But it's going to be doing both for a little bit. So placement log processing tasks. And then if that works, well, let's see. Have I already, or is it doing the S3 stuff? I have not processed this such that it writes out the updated arcs yet. Oh, actually, I guess I think I had it stop at the first contents. What can I do? I mean, I can just upload my current files and then it'll should be good. Can I arrange things? Okay, well, first of all, do I have complete files here? I think I do. That looks fairly complete. So if we write to both and You see, I only write those files if we process something, so I can't just run it and have it write out the files. So I guess to avoid reprocessing everything, I'm going to want to manually upload those status files. And then what we could do is see about switching our front end to using that ARCS file instead of hitting the server. So other than the CDN bit, it will be up to date with the things that are uploaded. Those will all just kind of happen as a file update. However, those are not automatically. Oh, yeah, so for development purposes, I still have to copy these over. Okay, 103. So maybe I want to automate something there at some point. Or just set that to my output directory. So on our front end, apparently I've not banned all the necessary directories here. Okay. Yeah, I might have to do, I want to do a config path for where we get the arcs from. That would be using maybe one of the uses of that. Yeah, I'm still searching too much stuff here. Oh, and actually, ACK might not be properly banned from this. I think I added the entire output directory to fix the family trees case. So this is either okay, you just don't even do the request because we put most of it in here. Fetch arcs. So it's a base URL. I mean, the server list could be almost static too, but it does have a server ID in there that we need. We'll kind of let the cache take care of that. Actually, this ends up turning into a local request. Like objects. Not an Elm syntax. Because I mostly pass those things on to leaflet. And we mostly use objects.json here. There's just static objects JSON. So I would want to convert that to like an arcs URL, which would become end up under key place. Elm is very particular about its, well, I'm kind of constructing a URL. So is there some way I can just take it from string? All right, so I had, the config that we actually use here. But this is for the config object init. And we have to copy everything into the model. I mean, I guess I could have a config object in the model, since everything we use we're pulling in, but maybe it needs some interpretation. So fetch arcs. Can I take just a straight URL of any form it's a maybe, which actually raises the question of, well, my other config things here, like lineage URL, I think is only used in the view, and that's a link which actually just wants a string, so that's fine. Cached API URL goes to methods which do cross origin, which wants a string. So those are actually appropriate. But if I want to turn you straight into a URL that I could pass, well, I guess I could have the fetch function. Maybe at every time. Wait, no protocol. Oh, do they have? That might need a full URL. Debug.log. All right, we need to get some stuff set up. We need a web server. We need a compiler. And all events need source control, and it doesn't like it. Did I do singular maybe? Arcs URL. Oh, did I do capital config? Cannot find URL from string. URL exposing URL. Are you a builder method? No. From strong. API URL. Oops. Actually, we're going to do that one. Change route to needs the argument to be model. Initial model. May probably also did this one. No, actually. It actually moves. Yeah, cached API. All right. And it says nothing, so it cannot handle a locally formatted URL. So unlike a normal browser fetch, Elm is not able to understand that something might be either absolute or relative. So the HTTP wants a URL. I want to support both the case where I go to a cross-origin URL to fetch it from the database, and the case where I fetch it from a file. Although there's going to be some other changes that have to go along with that, it would be a nice way to support the config. I don't see any way to do that. I mean, I guess I can check for HTTP. Well, not even HTTP. Because normally we'd be using this format. I guess I could check for // anywhere in it. So that's what the lower level thing is, but we don't have the parts. But you don't accept relative URLs. Actually, do you even accept? This won't work. But we should still be able to see the answer. Nope, doesn't parse that either. So you need to be an actual URL. The only way to do this quickly is to not make this a configuration. So you would be a well, I could put it in here, but without knowing what kind it is. Now, parsing that is probably going to fail. Yeah. So we've got start and seed. Is that start and seed? Well, I don't actually need the ID. I could fudge the server ID for now. Success. Nope. Expecting an object with a field named data. Oh. I maybe should have put that in there. All right, so the Elm side doesn't care about server at all. Well, no, I guess server ID is still in there. Life.server ID. Life.server ID. Fetch monuments is based on a server ID. Arc range, fetch data layer. Lives. Well, that's not a problem we have right now. And I could always just stick it back in the data. Well, I'm really probably going to have different ARC files with different paths if I have to work out different servers. But that much seems to work. So I'd have to make sure that existed on the server. And as we process new things, it should continue to be updated. And then that should allow that to stay synchronized with the other data. So that was probably the Tar Monument. Oh, yep, I saw somebody who wandered by here on a stream. All right, so that is... I don't think I have a source control for you yet. And at some point, it might be nice. Well, there are formatting changes, so I either need to add a data to my arcs object, looks like you had family tree parameters. You know what? That was a note. I think I did that. That was debugging. So brute force method for now. Does it matter if the files are different? Well, it's not an API response, so it shouldn't really need data. All right. So I need to upload all of my status files. When that's done, I should be able to update this so it's using them. The server could probably wait until I actually have until I've done another local test on the whole process. But I think that's it for now. I'll be back in a little while to play this game. But meanwhile, thanks for dropping by. Thanks to everybody who hosted me. Let me see if I can find anything to recommend. And to the people who subscribe. That is always appreciated. All right, what do we got? We got... that is about what I tend to be on. So we've got some game dev. We've got... Strangely enough, game dev is pretty popular on Twitch. We've got some JavaScript 3D engine. If there's a place cool to hang out. Fifth function is doing a lot of down and dirty stuff with graphics. So, yeah, that's someplace cool to hang out. Thanks for hanging out with me. Goodbye, and until next time.